We are live on Facebook.
We are live.
Yep.
You tell me when to start, yeah?
Okay. We still have 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Nice. Yep, that's good. You can start.
Just a moment.
Okay.
Hey, can I start?
Yeah, you can start.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining. My name is Nderitu, the founder and executive director of the Biointensive Agriculture Center of Kenya. We are based in Thika, in Kiambu County, and our work is to empower communities and working with smallholder farmers in the areas of agroecology and sustainable agriculture in general. And I'm here today so that we can discuss the issue of seed. I know that this is one issue that has elicited a lot of talk all over the world. And everyone is talking about how to grow more food, how to grow food using different methods or different ways. And farmers all over the world are faced by 3 major challenges currently. And one of the biggest challenge is the challenge of soil infertility, where soils have become very acidic because of the technologies or methods that farmers have been using, and that is using chemical synthetic fertilizers that have destroyed our soils for many years. So our soils have become very acidic, and most of the soils are dead, and therefore we are also teaching farmers on how to revive their soils that are dead so that they can continue growing more food without depending on external food donations. The other challenge that farmers are facing currently is the challenge of climate change, and that is tied to water for growing food, because we don't have sufficient rains. And when it comes very heavy, so that again, it's not able to support the growth and production of food. So that's something that we need to check on and see how we can fight and look at the issues of climate change. And more than 80% of climate change has been brought about by poor agricultural practices, and that is usage of mechanization and chemicals and chemical fertilizers and other poor agricultural practices like burning of trash after harvesting and all that. And now the third issue, which we are going to speak today, is the issue of lack of clean, sufficient, and affordable seeds. Seeds as an input has become very expensive. And we are saying that it's an issue that has brought a lot of discussion. That's all over the world. Because again, of the technologies that are coming up. So many technologies like genetically modified organisms, technologies like hybridization and all that has brought a lot of issues in our food systems. And so we need to think, are we chasing technology or are we supposed to chase biology? We are chasing technology in our current world, but the same technologies are finishing us. We have forgotten that we have a life to live, and that is biology. When you're talking about biology, we're talking about our lives. We eat biology. We live because of biology and not because of technology. So we need to think, why is it that there is a lot of hunger all over the world, yet there's a lot of technology going on, or technologies coming up every day? And all these technologies are geared towards increasing food production. So we need to think and start rethinking again how we can go back to life. Going back to life means that we have to go back to technology. We need to change scarcity of food into abundance. Scarcity of food into abundance. And how do we do that? We do that by going back into a biology which will help us to grow soil, and the soil will grow food, and then the food will grow us. So that's a chain of biology. And I want to speak about seeds for life. Need to push this up. Yeah, and the outline of our study this morning, we are going to look at the history, both biblical and manufacturing history. And that is, talking about biblical, you're talking about what the Bible says about seed. And then we're going to look at manufacturing, which talks about how the seed was manufactured. The first seed to be manufactured and how the seed is being manufactured even today. We know that the food that we eat came from the forest. It was discovered by man that this kind of food, like maize, which was discovered in Mexico many years back, was just discovered by a human being, and it became food. Many other foods right now have been domesticated, but they came from the forest. We're going to look at the reasons as to why we should save our seeds. And we know that there are 1,001 reasons of seed saving. And again, we're going to talk about types of seeds. What type of seeds do we have, and which ones can we save, and which ones can't we save? And what is this that's called a seed? And then we'll look at the pollination and the pollination challenges, looking at how do we get food. 75% of the food that we eat comes from pollination, and it's pollinated by bees. But where are the bees nowadays? We have killed everything. We have killed them all out of our negligence using chemicals. So we spray in the air, and the bees die, and they are the ones that help us to grow food. We have become stupid. Good quality and seed growing, how do we grow food? Then that is growing food using quality seed. And then step to harvest. How do we harvest? How do we clean seeds? And how do we store them? And where do we store them? And then briefly, we look at the longevity of seeds. How long can a seed last when it's saved, either in a seed bank or wherever, or different types of seeds? How long do they last? And then finally, last and not least, we look at the resources. We need to read. If we want to understand something, if you want to know something, then you have to read. And all this comes from the books or resources or even in the internet. And then we look at the final thought and finish from there. Our purpose for today's talk is to help us gain knowledge that will help to maintain the seed in good physical and physiological condition from the time they are planted until the time they are harvested, and as well as post-harvest handling. After harvesting, how do you handle and how do you preserve the seeds? So that's the purpose of our course today. And I believe that we are going to learn a lot. Everyone will be leave this webinar in the next, say, 2 hours with a lot of knowledge that they'll be able to grow the seed. They'll be able to maintain the seed in the garden and identify which one qualifies for seed and which one does not qualify for seed. And then how do you store that seed, and how do you multiply it, and also how do you give it out or even sell to other farmers, right? Yeah, so the Bible, in the book of Genesis 1 and chapter 11, it talks about the seed. It says, then God said, let the land produce vegetation. Let the land produce vegetation. Seed-bearing plants and trees on the land that bear fruits with the seed in it, according to their various kinds. And it was so. The land produced vegetation, and that is plants bearing seed according to their kinds, and trees bearing fruits with the seed in it according to their kinds. And God himself, so it was good. If God sees something is good, it's good because he has given us that seed for life. And there was evening and there was morning. That is that day. 29 says, then God said, I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit in it, with the seed in it. They will be yours for food. He gave us every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit in it. They will be yours for food. And that's God saying that. So if there is any technology that's giving us seed that you will grow or you'll plant, and it will not give you the seed, it will not give you back the seed, then that is not godly. So we are talking about a crop or a plant that will grow, and then you will harvest it. You will eat some, and some will remain for food. If it doesn't do that, then that is not a seed. So that is the biblical history of seed. But let's look at manufacturing. It is said that 150 years ago, there were no seed companies in the world. 150 years ago. And in 1854, farmers were doing what we call exchanging of seeds. Because there are no seed companies, so farmers were just exchanging. They were giving out and doing what we call barter trade. And that made farmers to become even more social to each other, more friendly to each other. And because, you know, if you are exchanging something or giving out, issuing something to another person, you become friends. But nowadays, nothing like that happens. 1866, the first commercial seed company came up, and it produced a seed of cabbage. The variety was called Long Island, New York. That is in the US. That was a seed, the first seed that was produced. It was a cabbage seed, and that is in 1866. In 1945, after the Second World War, there came a lot of technologies. That's when technology started on agricultural inputs, and that is after what we call the Green Revolution. And we all know that there was a lot of war going on all over the world, and so countries were fighting against each other because they were looking at the supremacy of controlling each other. And there was this war between America and Japan that killed a lot of Japanese, and in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And that's probably the one that brought to the end of the Second World War. And the chemicals that remained were converted into agricultural inputs because they saw that there was a lot of people that died and bodies were lying all over and houseflies were all over. And so when the war came to an end, they thought, what is it that you can use to finish these houseflies? And so they did some experiments, and a chemical called arsenic, which was used in making those arsenals, all those bombs, they were converted into agricultural chemicals. Today, there are still chemicals that are produced using arsenic chemical, and it's a very, very dangerous chemical. And if you look at in the agrovet shops where chemicals are sold, you'll find some chemicals that have been banned elsewhere in Europe, in the US, and they're in our shelves here in Kenya. They are still being sold. And there's a big list of those chemicals that PELUM Kenya has produced, and it's all over. So we need to share that so that our farmers understand the chemicals that have been banned elsewhere, they have been thrown and dumped in Africa, and more so in Kenya, so that I don't know whether they want us to die or not, but that it's something that is very wrong, that they are dumping chemicals in Africa, the ones that they are not using, and they are the ones that have manufactured them, and we need to think and rethink about our lives. And that's why I'm talking about biology and not technology. Today, we have about 7 seed companies or companies, agricultural companies, or companies that produce seeds and chemicals that control up to 67% or even more of global propriety of seed market. And if you look at this chain here, in between 1996 and 2008, Monsanto was the king of all multinational companies that produces and supplies chemicals and seeds all over the world. And, you know, Monsanto is American. We have Syngenta, we have DuPont, we have Bayer, KWS, Limagrain from Japan, Land O'Lake, and Dow. Those are the biggest, they were the biggest companies, multinationals, that were producing chemicals and seeds. Then there's a bit of politics that has gone on, especially in America, where Monsanto has been sued and they have sold the company to Bayer. So they have camouflaged inside Bayer so that because they have been sued a lot by Americans because of the damage that they have done in their health, so they have kind of sold Monsanto to Bayer. So Bayer is the one that is talking right now. And you can see that chain of how big they are. If you look at all this, I don't know whether you can see my cursor. All this, it stretches. Bayer is German. So it has stretched all this, and they are supplying their chemicals and seeds all over the world. And now what they do is that because there are thousands of seed companies in the world, they are buying small seed companies and now bringing in their technologies. So you can see how that chain looks like, and you know how dangerous it is. And their aim is to sell their seeds and, of course, genetically modified organisms to the farmers, and then farmers forget about their biology. So they upload technologies. We don't know whether they will work or not, but they are telling us, your biology is wrong, embrace our technology. So we need to ask ourselves, what is a seed? I know that everybody will talk about plant seed, or a seed that where plants will grow. And that is true. A seed, any plant that grows and produces a seed, then we term it as a seed. And that is after fertilization has taken place. If fertilization does not take place, then nothing will grow. And because we are not talking only about plant seed, we also should be thinking about animal seed. And this is where the animal the male and the female meet, and then they produce. So if that seed produces, then that animal becomes a seed. So a seed is not only from plants, but also from animals. So that's why they are genetically modified cows. You find a cow that is bigger than this house. You find that they are genetically modified fish. Some fishes coming from China, GMO fish. They are genetically modified chicken that grows and matures within 4 weeks. It's ready for you to eat. So that's a bit dangerous. If something does not take its natural course, then it is not fit for us for eating. So we need to think about that seed. So I've said the seed is not only from plants, but also from animals, as long as the male and the female meets and they produce an offspring that qualifies to be a seed. Now let's embark on the plant seed, because that's what we are talking about today. The cycle of a seed looks like that. So if you can be able to see my cursor, the seed here, always a seed is alive. Any seed is alive, because even if it is as dry as this one here, is as dry as this seed that I'm holding here, this seed is alive because it's eating, but it will go back to life after it is subjected to the proper conditions of growth. So it starts here, and you can see the endosperm. The endosperm is the food to this embryo here, to the radicle. And so after it's subjected to proper life or environmental conditions or conditions for germination, it grows into a plant and it regenerates itself into more seeds. And this is a seed that we call a complete flower. A complete flower is where you have the male and the female parts that are in the same flower. And that cycle continues like that until it becomes a seed again. And the cycle is supposed to go like that, a complete cycle. So that from seed, one seed will produce hundreds or thousands or millions of seeds. And then the seeds again will be planted or will grow and becomes more seeds like that. So a seed is supposed to regenerate. And you are not supposed to apply anything that is external apart from natural remedies for it to grow. If a seed is put on the soil, and then there is something that is put on it so that it grows, that is not a seed. I mean, if there is a chemical that is supposed to be subjected to that seed for it to grow, that is not a seed. A seed is supposed to be put on the ground, and then is given its environmental conditions like water, like light, fertilizer, and that is fertility, and then it just grows. So that's a seed. Again, if a seed is put on the ground and then you have to subject it to a chemical for it to germinate, that is not a seed for us. We have two types of flowers. One is called a complete flower. Complete. It's complete because it has the male and the female parts on the same flower. Female parts are called stamen, and the female parts are called carpel or pistil. Again, the male part of a flower is called stamen, which comprises of anther and filament. And then the female flower comprises of stigma, style, and ovary, and that's called carpel or pistil. And so the male will drop a grain here, and then the grain go down and find the female part here, and then it will be converted into a seed. And then an incomplete flower is where the male flower is totally separate from a female flower. So this is a female flower, and this is a male flower. So the male flower is send pollen grains to wherever the female is. I want to give an example of a pumpkin. Pumpkin flowers are made, the male and female flowers are separate. They're in separate places. And the male flower is the one that produces first. It comes within the 3 months of planting of the pumpkin, and then 2 weeks later, that's when the female flower comes up. So the male flower looks like that, and the female flower looks like this. So now the bee will take the pollen from here and bring it here. Although nowadays I've said that bees are nowhere to be found, so we need to do something else that's called hand pollination, so that you remove the male flower and take the pollen grains on the female flower, so that you grow pumpkins or even any cucurbita family. So that's a complete and incomplete flower. So you need to understand that. Another example is passion fruits, not really passion, but pawpaw. The pawpaw male flowers are in different trees, and female flowers are on another different tree. So we have to differentiate between the male and the female. So that's it. Yeah. So here we are talking about our seeds, and the seed that emanated from our generations and the generations that were there before. The seeds that have been saved year in, year out. This is a farm where this farmer grows only indigenous or heirloom varieties. These are varieties where you harvest, eat what you are eating, select good seed, plant it the next season. And that chain continues like that. It can be planted even 100 years to come, the same variety, and the production is maintained. And these type of seeds are very sustainable. They are resilient to the current conditions of climate. So with just little rain, it will just grow. With even big rains, that's what is being experienced right now, they still succumb to that. I mean, they still hold to that. But with the hybrids and genetically modified organisms, they suit a particular condition. When there's no rain, you cannot grow anything like hybrids, because they are called water guzzlers. And again, they are not fertilizer efficient. They require a lot of fertilizers so that they grow. So we need to think about how we grow our seed, and the kind of seed and the kind of food that we need to eat. Benefits of saving seeds. There are 1,001 benefits and reasons as to why we should save our seeds. Number one, we should think about engaging in the cycles of life. When you save your seed, you grow it, you weed and look at the best seed for you to save. You process it, you save it in your seed bank or wherever, in a closet somewhere. And then again, you take it to the nursery, you sow it, or in a farm, you grow it, and that cycle continues like that. It means that you're engaging in the cycles of the life of that seed. If you're not saving any seed, then you're not engaging in any cycle. Number two, we are saving our seeds so that we encourage genetic diversity. We need to think about crop and food diversification in our land, in our farms, so that whatever you're growing, we grow it, not just one crop. We should not think about monocropping. We should think about crop diversification, where we grow different types of crops, so that when we harvest, we have different types of seeds, and we can choose what type of food crops to grow in our farms, not being told what to grow. There's a difference between food security and food sovereignty. Food security is where you are told, go and grow this. This variety is good for you. This variety grows in this condition. But food sovereignty is where you are making your choice of what to grow. You are making your choice of what to save, the kind of seeds to save, so that anytime there's rain or you have water, you can grow your crops and your food. And number three, you are saving your seeds because you want to connect with your elders. Yeah, the generations that are coming and going, they hand over the baton, the relay, just the race where you are handed over the baton and then you run and hand it over to another person. So the elders that were there before handed over the seeds to us, and you are supposed to hand over the seeds to the next generation. And that chain continues like that. If the seeds are not saved, are not savable, then you cannot hand them over. So we need to think about our food, that generations and generations that were there before, the kind of food that they ate. And that's why they lived longer. They lived 100 years plus. Nowadays, the life expectancy of a Kenyan is 47 years. And it was 90, 70, 90, 100. Right now, living up to 70 is a miracle. So we need to think about what we are eating. And so this is the kind of seed that we are saving. We need to learn about, we are saving our seeds because we want to learn about nature. Nature is very important to us. We have to save our seeds so that we learn about how crops grow and naturally without adding additives like chemicals. We are saving our seeds so that we grow them and help pollinators. Pollinators don't like chemicals, and they don't like hybrids, and they don't like genetically modified organisms because they have chemicals. So our indigenous foods are natural, and that's what the bees like, and other pests and insects. We are saving our seeds so that we control our food supply. If you don't save your seeds, somebody else will control your food supply. And whoever controls your food controls your life. I don't want to become a robot. Robots are the ones that are controlled. You need to control your life. You need to control what you eat. It's your life. Anyway, you need to grow your own food. You're doing so, again, is because you want to preserve heirloom varieties. Heirloom varieties are varieties that have been planted for more than 50 years. And that it still continue to grow them. So those are called heirloom varieties. And if you look at our seed bank here, we have quite a number of heirloom varieties that have been grown for more than 50 years. I'll be able to show you that later. Again, you save your seeds because you want to save money. Who doesn't want to gain profit? If you save your seeds, you grow them, and your profit will increase. Rather than going to the shops every now and then and buying more new seeds, and then you eat everything, and then you go back to the shop again, your profit margin will be very low. You want to become more self-reliant when you save your seeds. And again, you want to adapt seeds to your garden. Adopting a seed, you adopt a seed so that it becomes your friend. You adopt several seeds. And then last but not least, you want to create new varieties. You can become a scientist. You can create your own varieties by crossing different heirloom varieties, and you come up with a variety that suits you or that you want. Not necessarily having scientists in the research sessions. A farmer is the biggest scientist, so you can be able to do your own research and create your own variety and register it. Yeah, and that becomes a very good for us. When you're talking about engaging in the cycles of life, that's what we mean, where you have seeds in your seed bank. Take an example of tomato seeds. Maybe it's a cherry tomato or any other variety, which is open pollinated. You grow it in the nursery and then you transplant it in the garden. That's you doing that. And then you find it's growing very well in the garden. And then you process it. You remove the seeds that are in this pulp here. And then you clean it. I'll be able to show you how to do that. And then you save it. And then you plant it. And that cycle continues like that. And that's what we say, engaging in the cycles of life. When we're talking about heirloom varieties, these are some of the varieties that were there many years back, but nowadays they're not easy to find them. These have been varieties that looked like that. And any seed that was indigenous or that is indigenous knows how to protect itself against pests and diseases. Look at these tomatoes. These very nutritious tomatoes, and you don't need to spray anything because they know how to protect themselves against blight, against tomato blight and all that. So these are some of the heirloom varieties. And then when we're talking about engaging the cycles and encouraging diversity and genetic diversity, you're talking about having different varieties. If we are planting maize, then you should think about the different varieties, not just one variety of maize you're planting in your farm, so that when you are eating a rainbow color. And the darker the color of food, the more the nutrition. So white maize is not very nutritious as compared to the red variety, or even these purple or even black varieties. So if you eat this, the one that I'm showing on with the cursor here, then it means that you are eating a lot of good nutrition as compared to the white varieties. So genetic diversity is the total number of genetic characteristics in the genetic makeup of a species. It ranges widely from the number of species to differences within species, and can be attributed to the span of survival for species. These varieties here can survive adverse weather conditions, be it drought or high rainfall. So they know how to protect themselves. Again, our varieties were not infested by weevils. Today you find weevils even in the farm. You harvest your maize with weevils, because that's how multinational companies have done. They want a variety that you will produce, and then you'll buy a chemical from them that will put the weevils away. You buy a fertilizer from them that will help to grow that maize. And so you become a slave. You become dependent on them. Anything, you have to go back to them. And you destroy your soil even further and further. So in the next 10 years, we'll not have soil for cultivation. We'll not have arable soils. What we'll have is just dead soils all over the country. And so we need to think about these so-called technologies and think about biology. These are varieties that were there many years back, and most of the varieties are not there now. And this is where they're getting the so-called improved varieties from. So they cross those varieties that were there a long time ago, and then they cross them, and then they come up with the new varieties. And those are the ones that we have today, which are not really good for us in terms of, they say that they produce a lot, but they are not resilient. You plant a bean variety, it is not even fixing nitrogen, because it has been made out of technologies. So those are varieties, and then look at the varieties that were there, tomato and potatoes varieties. Very good varieties, very nutritious. Today, even sweet potatoes are grown using fertilizers, chemical fertilizers, and you eat them, they are not sweet at all. So, and our varieties, you just pushed it in the soil and it grew and produced big, potatoes, and very nutritious, no pests, no diseases. Nowadays, you find even sweet potatoes are being attacked by pests and even diseases. You wonder why? Because they have used technology. When you talk about saving money, of course, you become happy because you'll gain more profit. It becomes an attractive kind of farming. And that's why young people are running away from agriculture, because agriculture is not giving them anything. Because you go buy chemical fertilizer, it's 5,200 shillings. You go buy seeds, it's very, very expensive. If it's tomato seeds, it's countable in the packet and it's very expensive. You go to chemical sprays, again, they're very expensive. So in the end, there's nothing that a farmer is getting. So a youth will run away and go to the cities to look for jobs. Yet agriculture is supposed to be a very paying kind of job. And we say that agriculture is not just a job, but agriculture is a way of life. It is supposed to be a way of life. So let's think, guys. Now, these are original varieties of maize, our original varieties. They were smooth on the kernel. The kernels were very smooth and very hard. These kind of varieties were known as flint, or they are known as flint. Flint is kind of a stone that's very, very hard. And so the weevils were not able to penetrate inside there. So they could not find food. And that's why the population of weevils was very low. Like 20 years ago, you couldn't see weevils anywhere because the kennels were so hard, and so they were not able to penetrate inside. So these varieties, they lasted longer, even shelf life, even storage. And remember, our forefathers and parents and farmers used to hang the varieties up there in the kitchen. So they hung them like this on the kitchen, and then the soot would cover here, and that was it. Nowadays, you have to use some chemical so that you preserve them against weevils. So that's the variety that was planted, that was there many years back, and that's what we are trying to bring back here at GBIAC, and farmers are trying to think otherwise, and they're going back to their original way of farming. Now look at the variety that is there today. Those are the varieties. They have crossed, and they have formed a dent. So that dent is not there accidentally. It is there because the kernel is very soft. That variety has a lot of starch. And the multinational companies have done that with a purpose. So that now the weevil just penetrates with just one bite. It goes inside. And they have also produced another weevil. It's called the larger maize borer. The larger maize borer, I hear it's called Osama, which penetrates inside a kernel, and then it makes 90 degrees angle, so that even if you used that chemical, I can't remember its name, when you use that powder, the chemical won't reach that weevil. So it's very, very clever, and it's been made by man so that you continue buying more and more chemicals for preservation. Yeah, so that's called a dent. It comes with weevils from the garden, and then after that you must use chemicals, and then after every 3 months you have to remove that maize outside in the sun, and then add more chemicals, and that chemical is carcinogenic. It causes cancer, and you'll find out that I've done research and found out that when people buy maize maybe in the market, and then they want to take that maize to become flour in the portion mills, they don't wash it. They just pass it through a screen, and then they say the maize is clean, and that's it. And the chemical has gone inside the kernel. So you'll grind it into flour, and you'll eat that flour, and you become a weevil yourself because you'll die slowly. Yeah. Now, what type of seeds should we save? What types of seeds should we save? We have what you call indigenous seeds. Indigenous seeds are seeds that are within a certain given area. They're indigenous to that area. They are used to the climate and the environment of that area. So that when you take them to another area, they have to take a lot of time for them to really say that, yeah, we now want to grow and grow like the original place where we came from. So those are called indigenous seeds. Indigenous seeds are seeds that have emanated, they come from a certain region. So they are used to a climate, they are used to that, the weather condition of that area. Heirlooms or heirloom varieties, they are varieties that have been planted for more than 50 years. If a variety has not been planted for more than 50 years, then that is not a heirloom variety. You have to count years 50 and more, and then you give it the name heirloom. So, and then we have hybrids. Hybrids are seeds that have been crossed, and the mother does not resemble the child. So the genetics or the genes of the mother and the genes of the offspring are not the same. So the mother does not resemble the child. That's a hybrid. It has undergone a process called hybridization. And the differences between hybrid and indigenous and heirloom and also open pollinated is that with indigenous, heirloom, and open pollinated, they can regenerate. But hybrids, if you plant a hybrid seed and then you harvest it, and then you take seeds out of that and plant it again, the production will be cut by half. So if it is a maize variety, maybe this is hybrid, if you plant it and then remove seed from this after harvesting and plant it again, if you had 1 acre and you harvested 20 bags, the next season you'll harvest 10 bags. The production is cut by half. But indigenous, heirloom, and open pollinated varieties, this is an OPV, open pollinated variety. The production remains the same because the father and the child are alike. The genes of the father and the genes of the offspring is the same. So if I planted this, if I test the seed, these genes, and then I plant this seed, and then I harvest, the genes that will be in the production, the next production will resemble this because it has undergone a process that is totally different from hybridization. This is a natural process where the seed can pollinate itself, or it can cross another one, but of the same genes. I hope that's clear, but you can put up questions and then I'll be able to answer as we go along. So we cannot save hybrid varieties, but we can save open pollinated varieties, we can save heirloom varieties, we can save indigenous varieties, but I've put hybrids in red, and especially I've said F1 variety here because it can never be saved. All right. So OPVs seeds are closely resemble their parents. Heirloom varieties, they grow for more, they have been grown for more than 50 years. Indigenous varieties, the seeds are produced and growing in a living natural in the same region and climate for a long time. Hybrids are results from controlled crossing of inbred and genetically distinct parent populations. And then GMOs, they are varieties in which genes have been inserted into a DNA. So you remove a DNA of maize, an example, remove the DNA from here and insert it in the DNA of soybeans. And then it becomes genetically modified. You can move DNA of fish and insert it on the DNA of tomatoes so that there are some characteristics that you need from the fish that will go into tomatoes. Maybe tomatoes are not doing well in cold areas. So you remove genes of fish because fish stays in water and water is cold and insert it in tomatoes. That's a technology. But how good is that technology? We need to answer ourselves that. Now let's go to pollination. What is pollination? It is the transfer of pollen from the anther, that is the male, into stigma, which is the female. And I say that 75% of pollination is done by bees. And you can see this guy here is a bee that's moving from the male flower, which is yellow, and taking it here. And this is a female part. So it's taking the pollen there. In the process of harvesting that pollen so that he or she can go and make honey, in the process, they leave some pollen here, which now makes the seed. So without this bee, we cannot get the seed here. And the bee is very important, plus other insects and pests. And that's why you should not spray anything in our farms so that we let things control themselves. You should only spray a chemical when things are totally worse, that's when you spray probably a biological pesticide. But if there are few pests here and there, let nature take its course, because there are pests that have come to eat others, and there's a pest that have come to do it different work. So we need to let nature control itself. So this is called cross-pollination, where pests and insects do the kind of the pollination, and then you have self-pollination, where a plant pollinates itself, and that's done maybe through wind. When wind blows, and then the pollen grains drops on the female part, and then now the pollen drops and goes and makes the seed. So that these are two types of pollination: self-pollination and cross-pollination. Examples of self-pollination is tomatoes. Tomato is a self-pollinator. It doesn't require the neighbor for it to make the fruits. Others are like some different kinds of vegetables, like sukuma wiki is a self-pollinator. Different capsicums are self-pollinators, so they don't require a neighbor. But cross-pollination is any plant whose probably the male and the female are in different parts. For example, pumpkins or the cucurbita family, like cucumbers, squash. Sometimes maize is a cross-pollinator. It also becomes, it's also a self-pollinator. Yeah, pawpaw is a cross-pollinator. Sometimes needs wind for it to transfer pollen from one plant to another. Yeah, so those are two types of pollination. But there are challenges that pollination are sometimes we face a lot of challenges, because if pollination has not been done well, then the quality and the quantity of the produce will be compromised. So pollination impacts seed quality and quantity. Again, you need optimum condition for successful pollination. Condition that is the pest will require, or even the plant will require for it to really pollinate very well. Sometimes we grow maize and we find that there are gaps inside here. And that means that maize was not well pollinated. So we need to think, what is it that we can do so that pollination becomes 100%? And when it comes to self-pollination, it's a bit easy, because it's just wind, it blows and pollen drops. But when it comes to cross-pollination, because you don't have pests, then it becomes a little bit hard for it to happen. And that's why right nowadays, when you're growing pumpkins, you're not producing big fruits or many fruits within a section. You'll find that the pumpkin leaves are a lot of vegetation, but there are no pumpkins, simply because pollination was not done well. So that's a challenge that we face. So how do you control pollination? If your plant requires wind, insects, or even birds for pollination, you can use physical distance separation, because if I want to avoid cross-pollination of my maize, if a neighbor is growing hybrid and I'm growing heirloom or indigenous variety, then if the neighbor's maize tassels first before mine, then the neighbor's maize is the one that will control mine. It will pollinate mine. So I'll not have the original variety that I planted. So I need to think about distance isolation. So the distance for maize is not less than 600 meters. So that now the neighbor and yours does not cross. So you now need to think about, because the land is small and you cannot maintain 600 meters, and the neighbor, you cannot tell your neighbor not to plant their maize before yours, then you have to think about other ways. If it's not distance isolation, and mostly this is done by seed companies, so you have to maintain that distance if you are to do that business. Number two, if you are to maintain purity of your seed, then you have to think about growing one variety at a time. You grow one variety at a time. So I can grow this variety this season, so that I don't grow another variety, so that I maintain this kind of variety. And then next season, I can grow another one. And then I can still grow different varieties, but I think about a technique called bagging. Bagging is where you take a bag and the maize is growing in the field, and immediately after it has tasseled and the baby, which is the female part of maize, has come out with silk, you cover it like that. So that now that pollen or pollen from other maize will not pollinate this. So just before tasseling and the silk has come out, you cover. This is called bagging. So that now you want to get the variety that you want. If you want to maintain that variety, purity, then you will take that tassel. You take the tassel of that maize. I want to assume an example. This could be a tassel of that maize. And then you put it in the bag and you shake it like this. And then you take it back again to the silk like that. So that now the pollen will drop into the silk. The silk is that hairy things, the hairs that are in the maize. And each silk goes into a kernel. So there are lots of silk here that comes out. So each silk goes into different kernels. So that it takes the pollen into different areas of this cob here. So if you see gaps in your maize, in a maize cob, know that pollination was not done well. So if you want to maintain purity of a variety, you can do bagging. You can also do caging, where you plant your maize or your crop, could be vegetables, and you want to maintain purity of your seed. You can grow in a cage, like a greenhouse, or you can do a shade net and grow your crops there, and then you will maintain purity of the crops or the seed that you want. Now the crops have grown, and now you want to harvest. You have grown your crops very well, and you have maintained all the practices, agronomic practices of growing your seeds or even growing your food. And now it has come the time for harvesting. Of course, when you're growing anything for seed, you must identify it when it's still in the garden. So seed production starts in the farm and not after harvesting. So in the farm, you identify your seed, and if a seed is growing vigorously more than the rest, if a seed flowers faster or earlier than others, if a plant is strong and healthy, you tie a string on it. You can opt to tie a kind of a string or put something there so that I will identify that this one, I'll harvest it as a seed. So the rest will go to food, but this one will become my seed because it has the characteristics that I'm looking for. I'm looking for fast growing. I'm looking for disease resistance. I'm looking for fast maturity. Yeah, and it was not infested by pests. So that qualifies to be my seed. So you'll harvest it as seed and treat it special for seed. All right. Now, if it has grown to maturity and it is a flower kind of a plant, like give an example of sunflower or sorghum like this, and now you want to harvest it, it has to dry completely in the garden. But sometimes you'll find that birds are feasting on your plants. Could be sunflower is liked by birds, and birds are feasting on it, or sorghum or millet or anything. Or there's heavy wind that's blowing and destroying your seeds, or the seeds are dropping and you cannot collect them from the ground. So you need to think about harvesting it so that you can take it somewhere for more dry, and you'll dry it under shade, not in the sun. So you'll cut it below, down there. You'll cut it down there, not like this. You'll cut it down there. This is already dry. So you'll cut it down there, and then you'll take it to a place where it's shady, anywhere that's shady, not on the sun, and hang it upside down like this. So you'll grow them, you let them stay like this. You hang them upside down like that in a string, and then the water that has remained in the stem will come slowly to the seeds. So the seeds will assume that they are still in the garden growing. So they will dry up slowly, and now you'll get quality seed out of that. But if the plant has not dried, and then you cut it here like this, or you cut it from here, it out, we say that is strictly. Make sure that the moisture content is below . And I'll show you how to test your seeds. All right. Yeah, so those are called wet seeds. Any wet seed has to be let in the garden to stay there until it kind of starts to rot. Or if maybe you suspect that it will be infested by animals or something like that, then you can harvest it when it is over mature and take it in your house and let it overstay until when you press it like this, it is not edible. You cannot eat it. You think that it's already bad, it has gone bad. So that's when the seed inside is fully mature. So the longer the wet seed stays, or the wet fruit stays, the better the seed, or the mature the seed, or the quality the seed will be. So that's about wet seed, and I'm talking about tomato seeds. So I said, in general, let your wet seeded crop mature on the vine as long as possible before harvesting, and then the seed will continue to increase in size and quality for days to weeks after the fruit is edible. And so then, though I'm differentiating there, the dry seed and the wet seed, I've talked about pumpkins and the tomatoes and the cucurbita family, and then the dry seeds and maize and any other seed that have to stay in the farm until it dries completely, like chilies, like eggplants, lettuces, and pepper. They have to stay in the farm until they dry completely before you harvest them. So how do you clean the seed? We have two types of seed. I've said the dry and the wet. So with the dry seeds, you can do winnowing, or you can use screens. Screens are those ones there. And the screens range from number 0 to number 6. So it depends on the size of the seed. Mostly number 6 cleans maize and beans. Number 5 cleans also some seeds. I mean bean seed. And then number 4 and below cleans vegetable seeds, and also seeds like sorghum and finger millet and some other small seeded fruits. So with the tomatoes, you have to clean them thoroughly, but before you clean them, they have to be fermented. So we do fermentation process of wet seeds, mostly tomatoes and pumpkins. So you let them stay in water for several days or several hours before they are processed. All right. So we look at how do we process the tomatoes. Number 1, take your tomato, which is over mature, and then you cut it in half, and then squeeze the pulp in water, let it sit for 48 hours, and then there will be a scum on top there. A scum will come up. That's some white stuff, which is fungal in nature, and then there will be some other seeds coming up. Those seeds are not viable, so that's why they float in water. So after that, you will remove, after 48 hours, you remove the scum and the seeds that are floating, and then the seeds that are down there are the ones that will qualify for seed. And then you wash them clean. You can see the second pot here, and then it's totally clean. And then you can dry them. You can use a paper towel after removing the water. Use the paper towel. And then you will sip or will pull that water, and then you can dry your seeds on the shade for as long as they're dry. Now with wet seeds, they can be planted immediately after cleaning. Like the ones that are in here, they can clean immediately. After cleaning, you can plant them, take them to the nursery and plant them immediately. I repeat again, after cleaning your seeds, you can plant your wet seeds immediately. Unlike dry seed, which has to stay in the store for the same time that they were in the farm. They have to complete a cycle. The dry seeds, if this maize variety is a 3-month variety, after harvesting it, you let it stay in your store for 3 months before you plant it again. Same applies to sorghum. Same applies to soybeans. Same applies to beans. They have to stay outside so that they undergo the dormancy stage process for the same months that they were in the garden, and then you can plant them. If I harvest this variety right now and plant it immediately, the production will be very, very low. So you have to let it stay and complete the dormancy stage process, and then you plant it. But with wet seed, pumpkin, eat the pumpkin, remove the seed, clean it, take it to the farm. It will produce 100%. So that's it with the cleaning of, and this cleaning applies to other wet seeds like squash or cucumbers. But cucumbers and squash stay only for 24 hours. It's only tomatoes that will stay for 48 hours. K-apple, which is a thorny kind of a shrub, stays for 2 weeks in the water, and then you wash it. You are fermenting these seeds because you want to remove what you call a germination inhibitor. Germination inhibitor is that slippery substance that is in the seed, that surrounds the seed, so that when you touch it like this, it becomes slippery. So you want to remove that germination inhibitor so that it just germinates immediately or after a few days, and then you get your plants growing. Yeah, I'll say you dry your tomatoes. That's could be a wet paper towel and then you label them and store them wherever you're storing them for as long as that you want, and make sure that you are storing them in good condition. Now, how will I know that my seeds are dry and I don't have a moisture meter? Of course, moisture meters could be expensive and they could not even be available even if you have money. So the simplest way of knowing that your seeds are dry is that when you have processed your seeds, put your seeds in a jar like this jar, and then take them outside the sun there. Let them stay there for a few minutes, and then it will heat up. So if the seeds are not dry, you will see moisture on the glass around the glass. And then you know that your moisture content in those seeds is more than 15, which is not good for selling seeds or even saving any food, because you'll find, if you're made for eating, you'll get aflatoxins, and that is not good for you. So let it dry completely until when you put in a glass jar, put it outside there, cover tight. There's no moisture coming out, no even a single moisture coming out. So you know that that's number one. Number two, put the seeds, just a little seeds on the jar like this. Put a little salt. That's the table salt, and then shake it like this. So if the seeds are wet, you'll find salt remaining on the sides like this, on the sides. So you know that your seeds are not dry. So, but if you shake it like this and then salt comes down here, then you know that your seeds are below 10% moisture content. Yeah, so you need to store your seeds very well. If it's in a seed bank where it's cool, and keep the humidity below 20%. Make sure that you have labeled your seeds. You label them. Label the date of harvesting, which seed it is, the source, where it's coming from. If it's your garden, label garden. If it's a market, label you bought in the market. If it's from the farmer, you say farmer, you can name that farmer there. The date it was harvested, and then the germination percentage. All right. So I'll do that just in a while. So all that I've talked about. And how do you store? The glass jars are the best. The best. Plastic jars are poor. You don't store your seed in a plastic jar, the seeds that will last long. If you want your seeds to last long, you put them in a glass jar, because this is airtight. It's airtight. So no oxygen is going inside. We don't need oxygen inside here. The seed knows how to protect itself and how to breathe and how to eat, as long as it has been saved in a good condition, a condition where it's not wet, and there's no direct light, like in a seed bank. Not supposed to have any light, supposed to be dark. You can put it in a fridge or wherever, but making sure that no oxygen coming inside. No oxygen, because if there was a weevil inside here and there is oxygen coming in, that weevil will survive and it will lay eggs, and you'll find a lot of weevils eventually inside here. But a glass jar, a plastic jar like this, it is not airtight. And even if you tighten it, even with all your might, still oxygen will go inside. So if there was a weevil inside here, it will survive. So you don't need plastic jars to save seeds that will last long. These are seeds that are coming in and going out very fast. You can still put them inside here. If they're not staying here for more than 3 months, that is fine. But if you want a seed to stay more than 1 year or more than 6 months, you put them in a glass jar. All right. Plastic papers like these ones are not good. These are not good. but you can opt to save them, your seeds, in khaki bags. They are good, but still they will allow some pests to come in. Again, I never talked about moisture. This one does not pull in moisture, but plastics pull in moisture. Yeah, so you have to look at why are we saving the seeds and for how long. Yeah, so where do you store your seeds? You store your seeds in a good condition. A good condition means it's cool, dry, and dark place. Could be in a cupboard somewhere, a closet, or you put it somewhere in a corner. That's a good place, as long as it's cool, dry, and dark. And then a better place, it's airtight, and then you can look over here, and then put them in a refrigerator, like that. So you can opt to have a refrigerator where you're storing all your seeds, and you put them in a container. Your seeds will last as long as you want, and that's why we have these fridges here, and we have coolers here, yeah, so that we maintain our seeds so they can last longer. The best place is dry your seeds to below 10%. Sometimes it will be a challenge to do 5%, but I talk about less than 10%. If you do 7%, that's better. That's nice. So your seeds will last longer. But even if you dry them to 7% and you don't store them in a good condition, then it will be useless. All right. Now, let's grow our seeds. How do you grow your seeds? Number one, site selection. The selection of where you're going to grow your seeds is very, very important. Has to be well drained so that you don't lose your seeds. You avoid waterlogging areas. And then number two, make sure that you prepare your soil very well to a fine tilth and apply good amounts of manure. And if it's organic seeds, we are not talking about chemical fertilizers. We talk about organic matter that emanates from vegetation materials. That's compost or even farmyard manure that is trusted. And then make sure that you have given your plants good nutrition. The nutrition means that you have provided, fertilization strategies that are good, so that you avoid these colors in your plants. If it's maize, you avoid that. Yeah, and understand the type of fertilizer that you're putting in your soil. Before you put any fertilizer in your soil, test the soil first, so that you don't apply fertilizer that is not recommended. So it's always good to fertilize the soil with the conditions that are required. All right. Somebody is asking a question here. Is it advisable to coat the seeds with a pesticide or treatment? If it is an organic seed, then no coating is required, especially synthetics. You can coat your seed using anything else that is not synthetic. You can coat with mud, matope mud. You can coat with charcoal. You can coat with paraffin, cooking oil. You can coat with cow dung, as long as it's anything that will prevent your seeds from being infested by weevils, but not synthetics, not a chemical. Because you coat them with a chemical, you'll take a chemical into your soil. So you're talking about organic here. Yeah, so thank you for that question. And then, calcium is very important to your soil. Calcium is an element because most of our plants nowadays don't have the aroma that is needed in the plants. It doesn't have the sweetness that is required by the plants. For example, if you planted onions nowadays don't have that aroma that was there many years back, because the soil has has been depleted of calcium. So we need to take calcium back into the soil. And that's one of the symptoms of calcium in cucurbita families. So we need to think, how am I going to get calcium back into the soil? You get calcium from bones, you get calcium from eggshells, you get calcium from compost. So make good compost, you'll get calcium, and all that will be, I think, of the past. Application of cured compost. Cured compost means that the process of decomposition has reached the end. You have done all the steps, and you have your compost has cured, and it has most of the elements that are required by the soil. Soil requires 17 elements, and 14 comes from compost. And the other 3 comes from the air, the water, and so compost is good because it provides nutrition to the plants. Number 2, it helps to retain moisture. And you normally say that 1 kilo of compost holds 6 liters of water. So if you apply good sufficient compost in your soil, it holds a lot of water for you for a long time. It also provides aeration. Yeah, up to 96%. They require good aeration. Fertilization, I've talked about that. And then when it comes to harvesting, I think I've talked about that. Make sure that if it's maize, if it's dry seeds, they have dried completely in the farm. And then use any technique of preservation. Our elder farmers were using the technique of hanging their seeds, especially maize, on the kitchen, and that was a good practice because the science there is coating the seed with the soot from from what? From the kitchen, from firewood, and so it would cover very well, and no weaver would penetrate there because that soot there is bitter, a bit not having a good taste for the weavers, and that was a good science. And we should revive that science. Yeah. The other one, of course, I've talked about the glass jars and put them in the fridge and dry, a very good place, dry area, cool. Yeah. So like that. Make sure that you are giving your seeds or plants very good water and doing proper watering. And watering is done, good watering is done in the evening. And because you have scarcity of water, just do one watering, heavy watering in the evening, and that's it. Don't do your watering in the morning because that will facilitate, there will be evaporation and evapotranspiration during the day, which is not good because you lose your water. So make sure that you're doing heavy watering in the evening from 5. That is good because now the plant will have an ample time, the whole night, of pulling that water and storing for itself. Yeah, so that's it. And then weeding, make sure that your farm is clean, free from weeds. Make sure that there's no competition of weeds versus your plants. And weeds will come to compete with your plants out of the fertilizer that you have applied in your soil. Use proper spacing. In Biointensive, we say close spacing, where you plant your crops close to each other after you have done good fertilization. And then if you did broadcasting, you must then come and do what's called thinning. Thinning is removing excess of the plants, and then you can go and eat them. And we do that mostly on cowpeas, just broadcast cowpeas, and then harvest it as they grow, so that you can, in the end, the ones that will remain will have proper spacing so that now they can expand and now give you good seed or quality seeds. So thinning is carried out at the same time as hand weeding. When you are doing hand weeding, you can continue doing your thinning so that now you can have some good space between the plants that will be left eventually for seed. Harvesting, yeah, we have talked about that. And then let's look at common diseases, and especially seed-borne. A seed-borne disease is a disease that will be transferred into the seed. So that now when you plant this seed that has a seed-borne disease, it will grow with that disease and it will transfer it into the plant itself and the seed. So we have to avoid these kind of diseases. One of them is bacterial wilt that is found in mostly in legumes, and also we have bacterial wilt in tomatoes. So when you see your seed, bean seed, or soybeans or cowpeas looking like that with spots, know that that's a seed-borne disease, which will be transferred to the seed. So that one, eat everything and don't think about seed out of that. Anthracnose looks like that. When the pods have formed, you'll find rings, black rings, and when you pluck it out, and just inside you'll find those necrosis inside. Those rings, they'll be inside the pods. So they look like that, anthracnose, and then you can see bean mosaic with a lot of spots, and sometimes looks like rust, but not rust. So that's also a seed-borne disease. Another seed-borne disease for cucurbita families looks like that. So the pumpkin itself, the fruit itself, will have spots. It is not bad for you to eat, but the seeds already have been infested by that fusarium crown and also the angular leaf spots. That's another angular leaf spot there, and the cucumber mosaic virus. So never get that for seed for the next generation. Leaf drop for lettuce looks like that. So that's already infested. And septoria leaf spot looks like that. So the seeds are not good again if you want to get lettuce out of that, lettuce seed out of that. So how do you control seed-borne diseases? I'll say that seed-borne disease is the one that is transferred, keeps on recurring. So, and the production is always very poor. And a reason as to why I don't encourage farmers to go to the markets to buy, even if it's bean seed. Because we have a tendency of going to any market, you buy the seed, and then farmers just plant them. Yet, probably they have those seed-borne diseases. So we need to think, how do we get good, clean seed? You get good, clean seed from yourself. So you'll be able to control the diseases yourself and now keep on saving your clean seeds, because you'll identify that this one have a disease, this one don't have. And in most cases, when we find diseases in the garden, we do what you call rogging. To rog is to remove those affected plants. So you rog them out, so that they don't infect the neighbors. So number one, physical seed treatment methods. We use heat treatments to control certain seed-borne diseases while maintaining seed viability. Could be, and this one is done to special seeds. Could be seeds that have very heavy or hard kernels. The coating is very hard, and especially the seeds from trees like Caliandra. Caliandra, if it's infected by some disease, it's easy to treat it by using the physical seed treatment method. You can use fire. You just, the hot ash, you drop the seeds in the hot ash, and then that heat will consume the disease, and you'll be able to get a clean seed out of that. And then you can use hot water treatment, and especially for vegetables, where you boil water, and then when that water is boiled, you remove it from the fire, and then you put the seed inside that water. And then after 5 minutes, you remove the seeds, and the seeds will be clean from most of the diseases, and especially bacterial and also fungal diseases. So that is hot water treatment. And then you have hot air treatment, which is not for us because that's hard to get. Aeration steam, not for us, and radiation. But we mostly, I normally encourage farmers to use hot water treatment, where you boil water and then put seeds inside that have been infested or infected by some seed-borne disease, and then you plant it. Number two, Healthy soils. If you treat your soil, treating your soil means that the soil becomes fertile. If your soil is fertile, it removes all other challenges. So caring for the soils involves maintaining levels of humus, and that's the organic matter levels should be very high. Make sure that you are adding a lot of compost so that you increase the amount of organic matter. And organic matter is food in waiting for the plants, and the humus is organic matter that has been fully decomposted, and that's what is being taken up by the plant. It's called humus. So maintain good, healthy soils, and then healthy crop is another way of avoiding all those diseases. Make sure that the crop is healthy. And then number 4, resistant varieties. Use resistant varieties. And the only resistant varieties that I know are the heirlooms and the indigenous varieties. Those are resistant and they are resilient to many of these challenges that we have. Going back to the soil health, you have to understand, as I said, your soil, know your soil. Test your soil first, and after testing your soil, you will be told what kind of fertilization strategy you will use. We have one soil testing station that it's doing very good work. It's managed by EPMA. EPMA is Efficient IPM Alliance. They are based in Ruiru, and they have a very good soil testing station there, and they are very affordable. And so you can talk to them. And after this, I'll give out the number for EPMA so that you can take your soils there for testing. A good farmer is the one that tests their soils before they plant any crop. Every season, you can test your soil probably after 2 seasons so that you know how your soil is growing and what you need in your soils. And then number 5, crop rotation. Don't grow sorghum in the same area every now and then. Make sure that you are rotating your crops. And with that, you must understand the crop families. You must understand that this is a heavy feeder, and heavy feeders don't go together because they have taken a lot of nutrients out of the soil. And then you should know that if it's sorghum, even if they're different varieties, you should not plant them again in the same section. So you should know which crop comes after the heavy feeder and which crop comes after the light feeder and the other one that comes after the heavy giver. Maintaining good hygiene in your farm is important, making sure that you're weeding in time before competition starts. Maintaining soil pH. This is very, very important because with the range of a good pH is the one that will attract nutrients, and the nutrients will work very well with your crops. pH of between 6 and 7.5, that's excellent. And with that, the nutrients will be playing around within the soil and microorganisms and microbes inside the soil, and your plants will do very well. Timely sowing, we say timely planting or timely sowing, planting just before the rains come, or immediately after the rains have come, maybe the second day or the first day. When the rains comes today, plant tomorrow. Or if you know that the rains coming tomorrow, plant today. Nowadays, it's a bit tricky to understand our rains because of climate change. We have destroyed our environment, and so we are suffering. You don't joke around with nature because nature will destroy you. Companion planting is where you're growing crops that have some kind of relationships. They have kind of they benefit from each other in one way or another. So you should understand what are companion plants and which ones are antagonistic plants. Antagonistic plants are plants that you cannot grow together because they will affect their growth. They'll have some kind of negative vibes within themselves. But companions are the ones that attract. They grow together very well. And then barriers and buffers. Make sure that if your neighbor is a chemical farmer, plant some buffer, some barriers, so that the chemicals don't come to your side. So you can plant a hedge of good, like you can plant Tithonia diversifolia along the fence, and then that will hold, chemicals that are coming into your farm. Number 11, I put it in red, natural pesticides. And I say that's the last resort. If all the rest have been defeated by some kind of pest, which maybe has come with a lot of force, and it's one kind of a pest, sometimes you can be infested by aphids, a lot of aphids, and you have tried every other means, you have failed, then natural pesticides comes in as a last resort. A pesticide is a pesticide, even if it's biological, even if it's natural, even if it's a synthetic. Pesticide is a pesticide because it has the word side in it. Side means to kill. Just like suicide, you kill yourself. Pesticide, you are killing. And naturally, we are not supposed to kill any pest. What you're supposed to do is to control them. You control them by planting, say, repellents. You can plant some flowers that are very good for repelling and for attracting, and let nature and pests themselves control themselves inside there. I'm mentioning just a few there of the natural pesticides. Garlic is good. Sometimes it's a repellent, sometimes it's kills. Depends on the mixture that you have put there. Sometimes we mix garlic and hot chilies. We also mix with the onions, and then that concoction there we spray. But we have to understand what is the active ingredient in all that. Because sometimes some don't work, some work. And that's why you have to understand the active ingredient in each. You can use eggshells, you can use ash and lime. We call it ash brew, where we cook ash and lime. The ash, the sand, and the lime together. You can use that. But there is what we call the ash brew, where you cook ash and lime together, and then you boil them in water for as long as that the water color changes, and then when it's ready, let it sit, it cools down, and then you spray against fungal diseases, against pests, against different types of diseases. Yeah. I'm looking at some questions here. Animal manure once cured and ready, can they still pass on pathogens? Animal manures once cured and ready, can they still pass on pathogens? Animal manure is good. We call it FYM, farm-made manure. It is good. But then farm-made manure contains a lot of nitrogen. And if you tend to use farm-made manure for a long time, you are pumping in a lot of nitrogen in your soil. That is good, but it's equally so bad because excess nitrogen is not good for your soil because it will cause what you call aluminum toxicity and nitrogen toxicity. So you have to balance. The soil requires some good balance of what you call C-N ratio, carbon and nitrogen ratio. You have to balance them. And nitrogen has to be way, way, way less than carbon. Carbon has to be very high. A good balance of the soil is about 45 to 1. 45 of carbon and 1 of nitrogen. So that's another lesson for another time. Today we're talking about seeds. And then another question here is animal manure tea better than composting manure? Is the quality good either way as long as it's properly cured? Again, liquid teas are for amending the soil. Any liquid tea means you have taken something and you have subjected it into water and then you have harvested that water. That water is good for amending. That is when probably the soil has lost its fertility very fast. Maybe there was rain and there was leaching. You can apply that liquid. But again, it is not as good as the compost itself, manure itself. Apply compost in your soil, does it. Apply enough sufficient compost. What the plant needs and a little bit more. And that plant will give you what you need, a healthy crop. I look at another question here before I proceed. Are there plants that are to be avoided when making compost? Yes, avoid eucalyptus. Avoid eucalyptus because eucalyptus is not a good tree for the soil. It is a big enemy for our soils because it produces some chemical that locks nutrients. If you go where the eucalyptus tree is growing, down there, you don't find even grass growing there. But the soil looks very fertile and it's very, very soft, but nothing grows there. There's nothing growing there because it has locked, that chemical has locked nutrients that are in that soil so that they are not released to the plant. The soil looks fertile, yes, but the plants are inside a store that you cannot treat them out. So avoid eucalyptus leaves. Anything eucalyptus, even if it's sawdust, avoid that. Please give the name of that buffer plant again. I know it's called Tithonia diversifolia. Tithonia is also has another name. It's called false sunflower. False sunflower. It grows mostly people plant it in fences. It produces some yellow plant, some yellow flower. It's very high in nitrogen. It's the only plant that I know that has about 4.7% nitrogen in it. So it's a very good nitrogen plant. So you can soak the leaves in water for 21 days, and then that water will be rich in nitrogen, and then use it in your soils if the soils have really been depleted. All right. I go back again. Marigolds, especially African marigold, is good. You can plant it in the corners of your farm or in between the farm. And when you find marigold growing, don't uproot everything. Leave some in the farm because they repel back, especially the aphids and some other caterpillars. Sunflower is another good crop. It's good because it attracts ants and aphids. So the aphids will be attracted, and then the ants will come and eat those aphids. And so if you had planted some vegetable like sukuma wiki, kale, or any other vegetable that is liked by aphids, and then you plant sunflower, they will opt to eat sunflower other than eating your vegetables. So that's why we plant sunflower plants in our gardens, and you just stagger them in the gardens. If you're using beds, plant your sunflower in the corners of the beds, and then that will be kind of an attractant. It attracts aphids and draws them away from other plants, right? And then brews. There are several brews that are very practical. They are really working. I talked about ash-based mineral brews, where you take, these are the ingredients. You can take 10 kgs of well-sifted ash, and ash here, it's any ash. Doesn't matter whether it's from eucalyptus or cypress, and again, cypress leaves are not good for your compost. Again, that's another tree that is not good. Mango leaves. Mango leaves are not good for your compost. Again, the mangoes, when we have planted lots of mangoes, but they're not good for your compost, again, because of that chemical, some kind of chemical that holds the nutrients that are not available for the plant. So 10 kilos of well-sifted ash, 1 kg of bar soap, not detergent. I'm talking about bar soap. Most bar soaps are organics. So 1 kg of bar soap, and then 40 liters of water, and then a barrel, and then fire. Boil for 20 minutes, put it down, and then just, that water is what we need. That liquid on top, that's what we need. And then you'll be spraying against all pests in your garden. Lime sulfur, those are the ingredients there. If you want to make more than this, that's fine. If you want to make less than this, just do the mathematics. 5 kgs of sulfur. Sulfur is yellowish in color. and then 2.5 kilos of builder's lime, not agricultural lime, builder's lime, 2.5 kilos, and then 20 liters of water. And then you boil it until the yellow color turns to I'm very poor in colors, almost pinkish or something like that. So it will turn from yellow to another color. That's when you know that your brew is ready. And you keep on stirring when it's boiling, and you stir it on one direction. Don't do this and then do this again. So it has to be one direction and consistent. So put a lot of fire, let it boil completely, and then when it starts boiling, that's when you stir, and you do it on one direction like this. So you know the science behind that. So boil for 30 minutes under heavy heat, and the solution from one direction until the solution turns color to light yellow. Yeah, let the solution cool, and then when you're using it, dilute 0.5 liters to 20 liters of water, and preserve the solution with a liquid oil. So if you're not using it, when it has boiled, you remove the liquid, put in a certain different container, so then that scum is very good for fungal diseases of plants. So if you prune your fruit trees, you can use that scum on that where you cut the tree. You apply it there so that you avoid fungal disease attacking your tree. Again, that scum is good for against ants, yeah, and also against those ants that creeps in your garden, so you can apply them in your garden. I once used it against these black ants that sometimes eats your chicken or your rabbits. So sometimes we had lots of them here at GBAC, and we just made this brew and we applied, and they went away completely. So that's a very good remedy for that, and they scare them away. So I've said, when you make it and it's ready, it's cool, you want to store it to be used tomorrow or next year or something like that, apply a little cooking oil, liquid oil, just a little in the container, and then now it will cover on top here, and then you cover tight and store it somewhere that is cool. So you'll be just taking a little, 0.5 liters, 20 liters of water, and then you apply. Once you get a little, you have to add a little oil again for preservation. So once you use it until it gets finished. So keep on adding just a little oil, a teaspoon of oil. All right. So I talked about that. Now, problems that are associated to or with storing seeds. One of them is rodents. So you must make sure that the seeds are saved where there are no rats. So if your seed bank should not have spaces where the rats can come in. Number two, we have that stuff there called silica gel. Silica gel, sometimes we find it on new shoes or handbags or in the radios or something like that when you're buying it. The silica gel is supposed to pull excess moisture that is in that, whatever, in the clothes. So it pulls the excess moisture. So if you find that and it's sold in the agrovets, you can put it inside your seed, inside there. So that just in case there's some moisture coming in, it can help you to pull or remove that moisture. If you don't have silica gel, rice is so good. So you can make kind of a bean bag and put some rice inside, just a little, just a small amount, like some grams, a bean bag, and then you sow it around and then throw it inside your container. So the rice helps to pull moisture. Sometimes when our phones drop in water, we put it inside the rice, and the rice will help to pull the water that is in the phone. So yeah, it's a good one also. So silica gel. Temperatures, avoid temperature variation. So where you're storing your seeds should not be so hot this time, and then the next time it's so cold. So the temperature should not have that variation. should be constant temperatures, should be cold temperature where you're storing your seeds. Moisture again should not have that variation. Yeah, so there should be no moisture, because sometimes moisture can come in here, and then after a short while it dries up, and then tomorrow again some moisture, so that reduces viability of these seeds, right? So avoid molds. Molds will come because of those variations. Avoid insects. Avoid your seeds getting wet. And we have this organic substance called diatomaceous earth. Diatomaceous earth. Diatomaceous earth is a rock that comes from Gilgil. And what we do is that there are two types of diatomaceous earth. There's one for drinking and another one that is not edible. The one that is not edible is the one that we use for saving our seeds against those weevils. So just taking a little amount of diatomaceous earth, and these are seeds that we have not applied anything, and then you take just a little of it, just a little, just a pinch like that, and then you apply inside there, and then you shake. And that will help to keep away weevils. So that's diatomaceous earth. It's very cheap. Actually, 5 kilos costs 300 shillings. And 5 kilos you'll use in a lot of seeds. Caution here, do not use diatomaceous earth on maize. Do not use diatomaceous earth on maize, because it brings maize together like a stone and reduces that viability of your maize. But any other seed, it's perfect. Right. How long will the seeds last? Our seeds last long depending on how you save them. But we have the seeds that live very long. We call them long-lived seeds. They live for more than 5 years. Those could be a Brussels sprout. That's kind of sukuma wiki. You have cabbage, you have cauliflower, you have celery, cucumbers, eggplants, lettuces, melons, radishes, rutabaga, spinach, squash, turnips, and that kind of family. They live for 5 years and above. But they can live for 100 years inside here, inside the fridge. 100 years, and that's why the biggest seed bank in the world is in a place called Norway. That's where they have collected all our seeds. You go to that seed bank, it's called Slovbard Seed Bank in Norway. They have collected all these varieties, every variety that you know in your area. I'm not talking about hybrids, I'm talking about our varieties, indigenous to us. They have collected all of them. They have a section for Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Malawi, like that. They have all sections. And then now they have put them there. And then they have introduced genetically modified organisms. And then now GMOs will finish all these varieties. This is called Rasta. It's a very good sorghum variety. And then this one will be finished. And then they will reintroduce back our seeds, because our seeds here will have been depleted, and GMOs will not work. They will never work, and they will not work because they have not worked in other countries, and they have been brought to Kenya. And of course, they will not work. So they'll bring back our varieties and sell them to us again at a very high price. Yet they took them for free from us. So we have to be careful about that. So long-lived seeds, we have medium-lived. They live for 3 to 5 years. Those are beans, beetroots, broccoli, carrots, leeks, pea, pepper, pumpkins, tomatoes. And then we have short-lived varieties that live for between 1 and 2 years. That's maize, onions, parsley, parsnips. They live for shorter time. But they can live for 100 years if they're kept well. So how do you estimate germination? It's very easy. So you can use a petri dish Petri dish looks like that. This is the bottom one, and this is the cover. So what you do is that you take cotton wool and just remove a little, and then you lay it there very well, inside there, and then take the seed that you want to test. Understand? So you will lay your cotton very well, and then count 20 seeds. We are small scale, so just count 20 seeds. For Kenya Seed and other seed companies use a gadget that they throw inside the sack and then remove. Whatever that comes out of that, that's what they test. But here we test 20 seeds of every variety, like that, lay it very well on that cotton wool, and then apply water, just enough water, and then you cover. And then you label here today's date, and then, so today's date, and then germination date, you put a dash, and then percentage, germination percentage, you put a dash. So the time that the first seed will germinate, that is the germination date. There's one seed, the first one to germinate, that's the germination date. And then after germination has completed, you count the number of the ones that have germinated, and then you do the mathematics. So if they germinate 10 of them, that is 50%. If they germinate 15 of them, that is 75%. So that's how you do germination test. You can use cotton wool and a petri dish. You can even use a container like this. It doesn't matter. And if you don't have cotton wool, you can use sand. Sand is also very good for germination. And if you don't, again, you are not in a hurry, you can use soil. So you're not necessarily using a petri dish. You can use anything, even something like this, just laying your seeds there and put sand, and then you do the mathematics, telling you how much or how many have germinated. So we have lost all our seeds, and we are continuing to lose them, but we want to bring them back. Where do you find these seeds so that you start this work of regenerating them and multiplying them? We need to start doing that seriously, because they want us to lose all our seeds so that they can bring back their seeds. We lose ours, they bring ours, theirs, and then they sell us at very high prices. So where do you get your seeds? From existing local seed swaps. Maybe in your region there are farmer groups that are doing seed swaps during seed fairs and all that. Your own circles of neighbors and friends, from farmers, from organizations that are doing seed saving work, like GBIAC. Here we do a lot of seed work, seed savers in Gilgil. We also have Biogy in Western. We also have C-Shape, but they're based in Kajiado. Manaus Agricultural Center, they also have some seed work, and other organizations that like I don't remember, but there is organizations in Taraka that are doing a lot of good work again. You can talk to the director there, Makanya, and can be able to assist in doing that work. And so that's it. So if you want to understand more about seeds, as I finish, if you want to know more about seeds, then you have to read. This knowledge, you don't just get it. You have to get resources, and the resources are there. You can have this kind of a book. You can check it out. It's there online. You can order it via Amazon. They can send you that. We also have another book here. It's called Seed to Seed, with very good information. And the authors are there. All the books have authors there. We have another very wonderful book here. This is our Bible. It's called How to Grow More Vegetables. You can use this book to read more about seeds and anything about food production. So all those are resources that you need for you to understand about seeds. My final thought, and this is a summary. Number one, check references to see how your seeds should be saved. different seeds can be saved differently, depending on the type of seed. And then to be sure your seeds breed true, use heirloom varieties. So you get heirloom varieties from those organizations that I've talked about, and then consider starting out with self-pollinating plants. If you want your seed bank to have a lot of seeds within a very short time, start with self-pollinating plants because they don't have so much complications. So start with self-pollinating plants. And then for cross-pollinating plants, grow one variety at a time. Maize, one variety at a time. So that this season, you are planting this variety. Next season, a different variety. And then you keep on accumulating. But you can also use the techniques that I talked about, distance isolation or time isolation. Time isolation is where you plant a seed, a certain variety now, this week, and after they germinate, next week or after 2 weeks, you plant another variety. So that now there will be that gap. And pollination will be different because pollination takes place within a very short time, and then the pollen loses its viability. So within 1 week of tasseling, the pollination will have lost its strength. So the other variety that you planted later will have now tasseled, and it's pollinating itself. That's why they're called self-pollinators. Then the other one is test your seeds before planting. Test your seeds before planting. So thank you so much for listening to me. I want to answer questions here that have come. How do you advise we store large quantities of seed for planting? It depends on what you mean by large quantities, because this seed bank here has a lot of seeds. And if you want to plant 5 acres of maize seed, you'll get it from this seed bank. So saving is just easy. Probably you can just use anything that is airtight. You can use hermetic bags. Hermetic bags are bags that have several layers of materials inside. But with those hermetic bags, mostly they don't save seeds that will last for 1 year. They save seeds that will last for 6 months and below. So that also can help because those different layers will avoid, they are meant to avoid or to put weevils away. So you can use hermetic bags, you can use airtight containers, any other container, you can put them in a freezer like this. We have a big freezer here that has a lot of maize seed. Yeah, so I think I've answered that. Any other question here? Can salt water be used in raising seeds or raising of seeds? Salty or saline water is not good for your soil. Saline water is not good for your soil. It increases the soil pH. So that is not good. So my answer is no. Any other question there? Kennedy? Do you see any question on Facebook?
No, we are good. We are good.
Right. So, in case you have any questions, please.
Maybe you can.
I want to give out a number for soil testing station. So if you want to test your soil, they are very friendly, a very friendly pocket. It's 0706. That is 0706 96 6980. I repeat again, 0706 96 6980. Dr. Mihindo of EPMA will answer you and help you how to test your soils. And I've said that they are very friendly in terms of charges. So again, thank you so much for listening. I think I've taken exactly 2 hours, and that was my plan. And I hope that you have learned something. And in case you have any question, you are welcome to here at GBIAC. We are open from Monday to Friday from 8 to 5. Again, we have our Facebook page. You can like our Facebook page and all our platform sites. And maybe Kennedy, you can mention our sites.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining this webinar. Follow us on Facebook at GBIAC. Follow us on Twitter at GBIAC_. Follow us on Instagram _, and on YouTube at GBIAC TV. We are going to post the video for this webinar on YouTube, so make sure to look out. And also, still on our Facebook, we'll share the links for this.
Thank you so much, and see you next time. My name is Nderitu, working with GBIAC. Goodbye.